All right, me and Miguel are now joined by Dave Goucher. He is the play-by-play TV commentator for the Vegas Golden Knights. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, guys. Just I think like everybody else in the same boat and trying to make the best of obviously a less than perfect time. But I think I'm fortunate to be out west, and we're blessed with some great weather out here in Vegas, and able to at least maybe get outside, sit outside a little bit, and not be cooped up in the house too much. But that being said, it's trying to make the best of not a great deal right now.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. So that kind of leads us into this first question. How has the quarantine been for you? How has it affected you? Stuff like
Well,
that.
yeah, I think it's been much different. I've been broadcasting in the NHL for 20 years, and I was 7 years in the minor leagues before that. And I think you get into you get into your routine. I always joke around that you're either broadcasting a game or preparing to do a game or traveling to do a game. And for all that to just stop in the middle of March like it did, I think was very strange. So, I think we're trying to make the best of it. You try to stay in a bit of a routine as best you can. We've really tried with the Golden Knights as a staff on the communication side to keep people engaged, and be it through podcasts like you guys are doing, or different Zoom shows. I'd never heard of Zoom in my life until 2 months ago. So,
Oh, yeah.
and I'd never heard of self-distancing until 2 months ago, but it's a whole new world. So we've really tried to fill the void, I guess, as much as we can. The team is so popular here, and fans love this team so much in Nevada that we try to, as much as we can, give them some content to try to ease the burden and fill that void a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and as me and John mentioned previously, we're both kind of aspiring commentators ourselves, commentating for our school. Tell us how you first got introduced to sports broadcasting and how you managed to be so successful.
Well, I would encourage both of you to try to get real jobs. You know what I mean? Maybe you could help us out in a different area. No, it's I love it, Miguel. I think that I had played hockey. I grew up in Rhode Island, about 45 minutes south of Boston. So, which is a hockey hotbed, in the Northeast. And I played hockey since I was probably 5 years old, played through high school, and then wanted to try and play in college. And I went to Boston University, which has a terrific college program, and tried to walk on the team. And they were like, no, we're good. We're fine. We don't need you, So understandably so. They usually have a pretty powerhouse of a team. So anyway, I was one of those kids, and I don't know if you guys are like this, but if I was playing street hockey at my house, or wiffle ball or basketball, I would kind of be doing the play-by-play as the game was going on, probably to the annoyment of my buddies and my cousins and everything else. So my cousin tells me you should tell people you've been doing this since you were 8 years old, but I'm not sure if that's completely accurate. But, no, I think when playing hockey at a relatively high level wasn't going to be an option, I still loved the game, and I wanted to try and figure a way to stay involved in the game. And I thought, well, broadcasting seems like a pretty good job. You get to travel a little bit, and you get into the games for free, and they pay you a little bit of money to do it. And that was about as far as my thinking went when I was, 19 or 20. And but anyway, then I kind of went after it. I was, as they say, at BU. My last 2 years, I did broadcast at BU hockey games on our student radio station. Nobody listened, nobody cared, and they weren't missing much. I'll tell you that. It was not very good. And then I just, I worked hard at it. I think you have to have a little bit of good luck on your side. I graduated from school, and about 2 months later, I was able to move to Wheeling, West Virginia, in the East Coast Hockey League, and which is kind of the AA level, and did that for 2 years. And then did the Providence Bruins in the AHL for 5 years, which was basically my hometown team. I grew up about 10 miles north of Providence. And then the Boston Bruins job on radio came open, hard to believe, 20 years ago. But it before you two guys were on the earth, it opened up. And I threw my hat in the ring. And, to that point, that was the job I wanted. I had always watched and listened to the Bruins my whole life, and was lucky enough to do that for 17 years, and called them winning a Stanley Cup in 2011. And they went back to the finals again in 2013. And
Whew.
And yeah, it was a great run, and I enjoyed it. But I had started to dabble in television a little bit, doing some college hockey games for NBCSN. And I think once I kind of got that bug, the rush of live television, it was something I thought if the right opportunity presented itself, I wanted to try and give it a crack. And but it was going to take a unique opportunity for me to leave because I had a real good job. But the first ever TV play-by-play voice of the first ever major league team in Vegas, that's about as unique an opportunity as you're going to get. So 3 years ago, made the move, and it's been an absolute blast out here.
Yeah, that's super cool how Vegas has come around and all of that. So how has Vegas been for you? I know you've been there for 3 years now, but how has it been for you after living in Boston, like in that area for so long?
Yeah, it's been great, John. I think that and look, there's times I miss Boston and I miss the Northeast. I'm still able to go back in the summers and which is a great time to be there. I will tell you, I don't miss the winters back in Boston. It's
Yeah.
we were there. We played the Bruins right before the bye week, so it was like latter part of January earlier this season, and we had like 2.5 days there. And I remember Shane Knighty and I on television, my partner in crime. We were out, and he had played for the Bruins on a couple of different occasions and lived in Boston as well. And it had to be 7 degrees with the wind chill. And I remember just saying, like, how does anybody ever live here? I spent my whole life there pretty much, so it doesn't take you long to become a wimp and have your blood thin right out when you get out west and you get into the desert and into the sunshine. But I love it. I've always been partial, I guess, to the ocean. I love the ocean, and I'm still able to get back in the summer. But I need something from a nature standpoint. And we live right at the foot of Red Rock Canyon out here in the mountains in
Nice.
Vegas, which is beautiful. It's I think I had like a lot of people, I was wrong about Vegas just in that I had been here I think 3 or 4 times before I moved here. And when everyone thinks of Vegas, for the most part, they think of the Strip, and that's it. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. And I said we live out in Summerlin, about 20 minutes west of the Strip. Gorgeous mountains, great quality of life. You can get around easy, and yet if you want everything that the Strip has to offer, you can be there in 20 minutes. So it's been great. It's been a great change. And it always, to me, comes down to quality of life, and our quality of life out here is pretty good.
Yeah, and we hear a lot of professional commentators have really interesting and fun stories. Joe Buck's peeing in a bottle in the middle of a game story. Do you have any stories like that?
I have one, and it wasn't. I heard Joe's story recently. I think he was on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, and I heard him retell that story, which I don't think I'd heard before. I had one of those. I was in the American Hockey League. My third year, maybe, I can't remember, second or third year, we were in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And the Fredericton Canadians were the farm team for Montreal, and we had a game there. They played on the University of New Brunswick rink. It was a small arena, probably held 3,500 people. And in the minor league level, a lot of times you work on your own. You don't have a partner. So and you're a one-man band. I mean, you're recording the game, you're your own producer, you're replaying the goals, it's everything, and so the game had ended, and I don't know, I probably have a smaller bladder than most, so I drink so much water during the games, I usually have to run quick. But for whatever reason, I think between the second and third periods, I couldn't get to the restroom or something, so now the whole third period, I've got to go. Now we get into the post-game show, and I still got to go. So it wasn't good. So I remember, I will tell you, everyone had pretty much, there was nobody left in the press box. The reporters had gone downstairs to get quotes from the players, and there was really not many people left in the building total. So I remember I was in the corner of the booth, and I think I took a couple of empty cups, and you got to do what you got to do sometimes. You know what I mean? I made sure I threw it away. I wasn't going to leave it on the counter. I didn't want anyone to think it was like Gatorade or something. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's kind of been there's been a couple of close calls. I used to drink hot tea during games, but I found that the caffeine just didn't help matters. And I guess I could go to decaf, but I just didn't do it. So, but that's the only time that, literally I remember being on air in the postgame show and saying, the Providence Bruins took the lead 3-2 in the third period, and playing the cassette tape replay of the goal as I was having to, kind of take care of business at the same time. So yeah, it's sometimes you get in a bind, and it's you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to hear stories like that from broadcasters, because it makes them seem more like, not so just serious trying to tell you about the sport. So that's awesome. So I know you've gotten to call like the Stanley Cup finals, which is, I mean, that's like a dream come true. But what, out of all your moments through all your commentating through hockey, what would you say is your favorite?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. I don't know if I could pick one because I've been very lucky. I mean, the first one would come to mind, as you said, is the Stanley Cup Finals in 2011 when the Bruins won it. It's interesting. It had been 39 years since they had won a cup, and in Boston at that time, if you put yourself back to that time and place, the Patriots had won 3 Super Bowls not too long before that. The Red Sox had won 2 World Series. The Celtics had won a championship in 2008. So the Bruins were kind of the team that locally hadn't won in a considerable amount of time. So, to be a part of that, to be able to call it, to be on the duck boats, the parade in downtown Boston, there were 1 million people in the streets, and it was just absolutely unbelievable. So that would be at the top of the list. I think, the Bruins had a big comeback from 3 goals down in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2013. Patrice Bergeron tied the game with under a minute left and then won the game in overtime. And so I think that would be another one that comes to mind. I kind of lost my mind because I couldn't believe they won, and they kind of, that spurred them on to go to the final again. And then I think, there was a game here the first year of the Golden Knights where they clinched the Pacific Division, and William Karlsson scored a shorthanded goal. He put, it's kind of become more in vogue now of scoring between your own legs. Like he kind of put the puck between his own legs and roofed it. And I just think that moment, shorthanded, third period, chance to clinch the division and, wrap up, kind of what was an unbelievable regular season, greatest expansion season ever in sports. So I think those would be some that kind of just jump out at me. But, I've been lucky that, with the Bruins or now with the Golden Knights, I mean, they've had just tremendous success, and I guess not quite 3 full years just yet. We'll see how this year pans out, but those are some that come to mind.
Yeah, and you mentioned before you kind of grew up watching the Bruins, living in Boston and stuff. Have you ever had any moments, I feel like every commentator, professional or amateur, where, you're watching a team that you like and you just kind of, whether they're doing really bad and just disappointing everyone, have you ever had a moment where you kind of just like lost your cool and freaked out on the mic?
Freaked out. I don't know if I freaked out on the mic, but I would say internally freaking out. The Bruins had some hard losses before they won the cup in 2011. In 2009, they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and got upset in the second round of the playoffs by Carolina, losing Game 7 at home in overtime. And then the toughest one in my time, well, there was a couple, would have been in the next year in 2010. They had a 3-0 lead on Philadelphia in the playoffs and lost 4 in a row, including losing a 3-0 lead in Game 7 in Boston. So that's, you're trying to kind of keep your emotions in check. But I think that if you're listening to games like that and you're a fan of the Bruins at the time, you're just as disappointed or as freaked out as the announcer is. So, and the other one probably would be in 2013 in Game 6 of the Stanley Final against Chicago. The Bruins were up 2-1 with, I want to say it was under 3 minutes left, 3 or 4 minutes left, and the Hawks scored 2 goals in 17 seconds to go ahead and not only win the game, but win the Stanley Cup in Boston. So that was just one of the more surreal, where you thought, okay, the Bruins are in good shape. They're up 2-1. They're going to force a Game 7 back in Chicago, to the whole thing's over, and all of a sudden they're bringing out the Stanley Cup. And I remember in those days, to leave the Garden in Boston, you had to walk by the visiting dressing room. And I'll never forget walking by the Blackhawks locker room, just staring at the floor. Like I couldn't even, I didn't want to hear the celebration. I didn't want to see it. So, yeah, I think, there's been a lot of good, but also some disappointments, but that's probably par for the course if you do this for a long time, and you hope that the good outweigh the bad.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you've commentated now a lot of playoff hockey. And so I think like every commentator's dream when you're growing up is to like call a big playoff game just with the fans. And you know that there's like so many people probably watching, listening, stuff like that. So like, what is like the adrenaline like, and like what goes through your head before one of those games, and just what is that whole experience like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that maybe when I was younger, I had so many high expectations, of just take it from the Bruins standpoint of, all right, the Bruins are going to win and they're going to move on to the next round. And, they had some hard defeats. Like I said, that, 2009, they lost in 2008 in Game 7. They lost in 2004 in Game 7. So I remember getting 2010. By the time, it's a heck of an adrenaline rush for sure. But I think by the time 2011 rolled around, and most of my experiences in broadcasting Game 7s had been the team losing. So I think by the time 2011 came around, and that year the Bruins ended up winning. They were the first team ever to win 3 Game 7s on their way to winning a Stanley Cup. They won Game 7 against Montreal in the first round, Tampa in the conference final, and then Vancouver in the Cup final. But I do remember thinking by the time Game 7 2011 with Montreal came around, I wanted to just kind of go into it and enjoy the ride and enjoy the experience. I didn't want to have any expectations, because up until that point, it had been kind of a downer. They had lost. And sure enough, they went into Game 7 overtime against Montreal. And I remember thinking, all right, well, let's just see how it goes. I didn't even want to ponder they might win, because, to that point, they'd had their issues in 7th game. So, and then Nathan Horton scored in overtime to win, and they kind of get over the hump there. So, but there's nothing like it, John. I think it's, there's nothing that, creates kind of more anticipation and excitement and probably nervousness.
Yeah.
Certainly from a fan's perspective. I think from a broadcasting perspective, I try not to change it up too much in terms of, you just, stay in the game, call the game.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing it's not just a random game in the middle of January, and but they're exciting. I think those, if you're in this business, those are the types of games you want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And, you said you always grew up, loving hockey, playing the game, now commentating the game. Were there any other times in your career where you kind of wanted to switch sports, whether you wanted to specifically do baseball or continue hockey or football or any other stuff like that?
Yeah, Miguel, I'd had I don't know if I could do baseball. I've done when I was in college, I did hockey, football, and baseball. I did a little bit of basketball, but not much. Baseball, I think, what I love about hockey is in normal times, it's 3 games a week. It's 82 games. It's, and then hopefully the playoffs.
Yeah.
Baseball's double the games. That's a lot of games, and I just think that plus spring training, and it's all summer. And what I do love about hockey is that it's in the winter months. And even if your team does go, into June, into the Cup final, you still have July and August, which, it's a great time to have a little time to kind of get rejuvenated. So I did have the New England Patriots radio job came open back in, I want to say it was 2012 maybe. And the late, great Gil Santos had been the Patriots radio announcer for forever and one of the all-time greats, and he was going to retire. And it was during the NHL lockout. I don't know if you guys remember, of 2012 into 2013, where they didn't start playing until January of that year. They played a shortened 48-game season. And the radio station I worked for back in Boston, the the Sports Hub had the rights and still do to the Bruins, Patriots, and Celtics. And there was a thought that I was thinking, boy, I'd love to be able to figure a way to do both the Bruins and the Patriots.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for it and thought it went pretty well. And we even had conversations about, well, maybe there were some Bruins games I might miss, but could we figure that out, and potential conflicts. And then they ended up hiring Bob Sosi, who's a terrific announcer, and they hired the right guy. Bob is terrific. But my buddies back home say, you know, you'd have 3 Super Bowl rings too, as long as with a Stanley Cup ring, if that had worked out, you know. But no, that was the only time really. I think hockey's always been my favorite sport, and I've never had a huge desire to do any other sport on a regular basis, except for, you know, it was kind of intriguing that, you know, to maybe try to do both the Bruins and the Patriots at the same time.
So kind of talking more about broadcasting. So obviously me and Miguel are looking to pursue that kind of field. So just what advice would you give to, you know, young people like us trying to go into this kind of career?
Well, I would encourage both of you to go after it. I really would, guys. I think that, and the more you can do, the earlier you can do it, the better. Let me ask you guys a question. You're in high school now. Do you have any sorts of radio stations at your school, or are you able to dabble in it right now? How's that work?
Yeah, we go off of this program called Strive, where we do commentate and live stream our high school sports. In the fall, me and John both did 1 or 2 volleyball games. We did most of the football season. During the winter, we did basketball. Me, him, and our other colleague, Cody. We all commentated basketball, and we were hoping to do baseball, and I'd do soccer in the spring, but with everything canceled, that unfortunately got canceled too.
So you guys have already dabbled in play-by-play and so forth. Have you recorded it? Do you tape yourselves and all that?
Yeah, we all the games that we have are recorded, and we upload most of them, not all of them, to our Strive page.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess in answer to your question, I think that I would say this: you guys are already ahead of where I was at high school. Like when I was in school back in the olden days, there weren't those sorts of opportunities. So, but I would encourage you to continue to do that. And then as you move ahead, you know, into college, you know, I was lucky that Boston University had then and still has one of the best communications programs in the country. But I think I would encourage you to go somewhere where you can actually continue to pursue doing games, whatever school that might be, whatever you think the best fit is. Because I think as you're, you know, younger, trying to find your way into the business at some point, it is all about reps and doing games and the actual process of doing them. So that would, and I do think now, I think a lot more than when I was, you know, in your age group and into college, you know, there were opportunities, but it was now with the internet and podcasting and the growth of the broadcasting business overall, there's just so many different ways to get into it now. So, and I would say, guys, if you really want to do it, you have to chase it. You have to go after it. You know, I picked up everything I had when I was 24 or 23, or however old I was, and moved to Wheeling, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. I'd never heard of the place in my life. If someone asked me to find it on a map, I would have been challenged to find it.
Yeah.
The answer is it's about an hour southwest of Pittsburgh. But, you know, I figured, you know, I'm not really good at much else, you know, and I didn't have a plan B, you know, so I knew this was an opportunity to try at least to make a career out of it. So that would be my, I think the business is going to need you. It's going to need good young broadcasters like you guys as you move forward. And I think if you want to do it, you really have to give it a shot and go after it.
Yeah. And, for trying to, let me see if I can rephrase this, started it badly. When you first started commentating, were there any kind of moments where you said how when you first started doing it in college, you know, no one was watching, absolutely no one was tuning in and they weren't missing much. Were there any moments where someone like picked you up when you were down and, was kind of like your motivation to keep striving and then keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I had any moments where I was really down about it. I think when I was in college, I was just trying to see if I could do it. You know what I mean? Like I think that what I would say, maybe back to your previous question is I would also reach out to people, and ask for their feedback. If you've got everything, you guys have been able to record everything, which is great. And I did that when I was in school. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of Sean McDonough, who's I think a terrific announcer, and was broadcasting the World Series for CBS when he was 30 years old, and has gone on to, I think he's one of the premier announcers in the country, and went on to do Monday Night Football, and now he's a terrific job doing college football for ESPN. But Sean, when I met him, was doing the Red Sox on television and was fantastic at that. And so I think I asked him for his feedback. I asked other people that I interned for in the Boston area and in Rhode Island, what do you think? And they all were very encouraging. And that meant the world to me, because I thought, these guys are in the business. They know something that I don't know. They're where I want to go. And I think that really encouraged me to stay with it. And, realizing that there were dues to be paid. I mean, you pick up, you move. Quite frankly, guys, there's not a lot of money in it in your early formative years, but that's okay. I never really focused or fixated too much on that. I think that as long as you had enough money to kind of pay your rent and, have a couple of cold ones on the weekend if you so choose, what else do you need, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's you can break it down to the basics. So, no, so I don't think I was ever really too discouraged when I was younger. I think that I felt like I was on the right road. I think there are times maybe as you're trying to advance another step on the ladder. When I was in the American Hockey League in Providence, the NHL had expanded to Columbus, Minnesota, Atlanta, and Nashville. So for guys like me, that was 4 potential jobs. Doing radio, and I was still thinking radio predominantly back then. And I sent my stuff to all 4 of those teams, and I don't even know if I heard back. I think Nashville maybe sent me a form letter back of thanks, but no thanks. And,
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not about, well, they hired this guy. Why didn't they hire me? I just think sometimes it is timing. It is the right connections. It's, and by the time the Bruins job came open, that was a different story. I had been doing their games in the minor leagues for 5 years. It was far from a slam dunk, but at least I had some people that might be able to go to bat for me and say, give this guy a listen, whatever, this guy's pretty good. And obviously it all paid off.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, because I think I can speak for both me and Miguel that this is something we're both pretty passionate about and really want to make out of a career. So just hearing that is pretty good for guys like us. So now I kind of wanted to transition into talking specifically about the Golden Knights. So my dad, he lived in Boulder City, actually, which is right outside of Vegas. And so when that team was brought up, my dad was like, you know what? I know we don't follow hockey a lot, but we should start following the Golden Knights. And so they obviously have had a lot of success in their first 3 years. So why do you think there's been so much success early?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of reasons, John. I think one of the main reasons is they did a terrific job, and they being George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon and their staff on the hockey operations side, they did a terrific job of picking the right players in the expansion draft. If you go back to year 1, it was masterful. Some of the players they were able to pick up, some of the deals they were able to make. Getting Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith from Florida, getting Eric Howla and Alex Tuck from Minnesota, getting Shea Theodore from Anaheim, getting somebody like James Neal from Nashville, William Karlsson from from Columbus, where he had scored, I think, 6 goals the year before. They did a great job of, I think, you could phrase it finding diamonds in the rough, but I think it was more than that. It was players they felt that had some level of success. Jonathan Marchessault was a 30-goal scorer for the Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Riley Smith had a few 20-goal seasons. James Neal's a perennial 20-goal scorer. And on top of all that, they were able to get Marc-Andre Fleury from Pittsburgh, who's been the face of the franchise, right? So I think they were looking for guys, not so much in Fleury's case, but others where certain players that had some success, but they looked at them and they felt they were capable of more. And in the right situation, they would flourish more and produce more. So I think they did a fantastic job of that in year one. And, it's hard not to, when you talk about year one, not to talk about, the terrible shootings here on October 1st of that fall. Because it was 5 days before the start of the season. The first ever game that the Golden Knights were going to play was going to be in Dallas. And I think that the bond that formed between the team and the city, and just trying to help people feel better and maybe be a little bit of a diversion, I don't think that bond will ever be broken. I was in Boston and lived through the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013, and the Bruins and the Red Sox, and I want to say the Celtics, I think the Red Sox had just started their season. It was Patriots Day, the day of the bombings. And you guys probably remember David Ortiz's, speech with an F-bomb in there a couple of days later. I think sports can help people, even if it's for a couple of hours a day. And I lived through that in Boston and then lived through it here in 2017. And, but I do think that people love this team so much, and every night it's sold out, jam packed. When they have a home game at T-Mobile Arena. So it's kind of a longer answer, John, but I think they were so far ahead in year one. They this incredible run of going to the Cup final, and now they're light years ahead of most expansion teams.
Yeah.
So it fast forwarded everything they were doing, and then. Before that next season, they traded for Max Pacioretty. They signed Paul Stastny. They traded for Mark Stone at the trade deadline a little more than a year ago. So they've, they're really, they're in it to win it right now. They're not. They don't want to be a one-hit wonder and go to the final, just once. So they've really made a great commitment to do that.
Yeah, and before the whole quarantine stuff hit, they were sitting at the top of the Pacific Division right now. So whenever the season does commence, if it does commence again, where do you think they're going to end at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's tough to say, Miguel. I mean, I think that they've had an interesting season this year. Just to encapsulate it, I mean, they had their struggles early. They took off kind of late December into January, and then they struggled again. They made a coaching change, which I think was a big surprise for sure, with Gerard Gallant being fired and Pete DeBoer coming in, which I said at the time, and I'll say it again, you can't make this crap up. Like you've got, of all coaches, they bring in Pete DeBoer from San Jose, who had been fired in December, and they bring in the coach of their arch rivals. So I do think, Miguel, that they are primed to make a good run if they're able to resume playing. They were active at the trade deadline. They brought in Robin Lehner to augment their goaltending. They brought in Alec Martinez to strengthen their defense core, a two-time Cup winner with Los Angeles. Brought in Nick Cousins to provide some good depth at forward for them. And the other part of it is they had some injuries. Mark Stone was hurt. Max Pacioretty was hurt. Alex Tuck was hurt. All those guys are more than ready to go now with the quarantine. So I think they're as primed as any team, especially in the West, to make a pretty good run. It's just a matter of if and when they can come back. When can they come back? What's it going to look like? And that seems to change really on a daily basis.
So I kind of want to talk about the fans here, because especially when they announced the expansion team was going to Vegas, a lot of people were questioning it. Like, how can there be a team in the desert in Vegas with just being known for the Strip, like you said earlier, but the fans at T-Mobile and all throughout Vegas, I think, are incredible. I mean, I know I went to a game on New Year's this past year, and it was sold out. It was insane there. Probably one of the best sporting events I've been to in my 17-year life so far. So just uh, what has it been like, just seeing all the support around the team with the amazing fans?
Your 17-year life, you're getting up there.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I wish I could remember 17. No, it's been unbelievable. I think that, and look, I get it. They never had a major league team in Vegas, but I think that what I realized right away was that people that live here have wanted to have their own team for a long, long time. They wanted to have their own team, their own identity. We all love the Strip, but they wanted an identity away from the Strip. I always joke around that, I lived in Boston or near Boston most of my life. I never really walked the Freedom Trail. I mean, if you lived in Washington, D.C., you probably wouldn't go to the Lincoln Memorial unless somebody came in from out of town, right? So I think that in Vegas, as much as we love the Strip and it's got anything and everything you'd want, I think if you live here and you live your life in your community, people wanted their own team here for a long, long time. And I think that's one of the main reasons that they love this team so much. They're so passionate about it. They support it with, playing to, I want to say it's 102% capacity attendance-wise every night, because they've been wanting it for so long. So, and I do think, as things move forward, the Raiders are going to be moving here in the fall, and they've built not too far from T-Mobile. You could walk from T-Mobile Arena to Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders are going to play. I think it'll be great. I do think it's different. One of the things the Golden Knights are proud of here is they are Vegas born. If you go around Vegas, you'll see all these billboards, Vegas born. It's their own team. It's not a team moving from elsewhere. But that being said, I think it's great. I do think I'm one of those that believes that the rising tides raise all boats. I think it'll be great to have an NFL team to join an NHL team. So, but yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons, John, is people here have wanted to have their own team for ages, and now they have one. And you're right. I mean, you lived it going through, the game you went to here. And what I love about it is you went to a game on New Year's Eve. If you came to a random game in the middle of February, the atmosphere would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Every night it's awesome.
And another question kind of about the future of your career. You've obviously had a very accomplished career. You've commentated the Stanley Cup. Is there anything else you're kind of still working towards? Any other long-term goals that you're still fighting to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, Miguel. I mean, I think it's always important to have goals. I've dabbled a little bit doing some games with NBCSN. So that's kind of a kick to do some stuff nationally. I think I'd certainly like to do more of that if the opportunity is there. I've been fortunate enough to do some national radio stuff with Westwood One Radio, which has always been a real treat to be able to do that. 2 of the last 3 years I've been able to do the national call for the Western Conference Finals. So that's been fun. I think I'd like to do more of that as well. Because one of the things that I will say, one of the drawbacks moving to TV, but I went into it with my eyes wide open, is after the first round of the playoffs, it all goes to the national TV call. So that means guys that do the local call like me, they're just kind of sitting around. I mean, they still find stuff for us to do, but so I think that it's been fun to be able to kind of continue to dabble on the radio side with Westwood One. So, yeah, I think those are things that I would still like to kind of do more of if the opportunity is there, and then just try to, I think, continue to refine what Shane Knighty and I do on television. We have so much fun doing it. We're great friends away from it. And, we kind of had instant chemistry on the air and off the air, which is rare. So, yeah, I just think to be able to continue to do that and continue to to develop what we've been able to do over the last few years for sure.
Yeah, I know. I love listening to you and Shane do the TV because I watch the Vegas Knights games when I can, and just, you have such an exciting voice, and it's so fun to watch those games.
Well, I appreciate it, John. Yeah, it's fun. I will tell you, I annoy Shane, I think, at times because I'll sing on the air, but that's good. You know, I try to keep him on his toes and
Oh yeah,
and joke around, but we have a blast with it. I think we try to make it a mix of, it's all about the game, and I get that. That's first and foremost, but. You can have a few chuckles and make it fun. It should be, I don't know. I always try to think of it again in normal times. People are coming home from their jobs and they're sitting down or they're out at a pub and they're having a pint and they want to just watch the game and enjoy watching it. And I think we can help them have fun with trying to, have some light moments along, with, the important moments as the game goes on.
Yeah, I know me and John, we enjoy, having some fun. Me and John have really, we've kind of broken it into our own roles. I don't know if you do this also, but, John is more of the research type, he knows everything about the teams. And if a player coughed 2 days ago, he knows about it. He knows the exact time it happened.
That's great.
And I'm more of, analytical, breaking down a play as it happened, stuff like that. So that's something I really enjoy that me and John do. Do you kind of do sort of the same, with your staff?
I think so, Miguel. Yeah. I mean, Shane played pro for 15 years and played in the NHL 10 or 11 years, I think. So, and I, for the most part, try to leave the X's and O's to him because as a former player, his ability to break down a game is fantastic. So, but also it's more than the X's and O's. A lot of the time I'll try to get into the mindset of, as the former player that he is, what's the player thinking there? And he was a defenseman, going back to play a puck, you've got the forecheck bearing down on you. What are your options? How quickly do you have to process it? Things along those lines. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, and he's so good at doing that. So I try to, I also think there should be room for opinions, even if you're a play-by-play guy. I didn't play at a high level, but I've been around the game, and I have a relatively functioning brain, I guess, still these days. That I think I've been around it enough to know when it's a bad goal or know when something, it's a bad turnover or, a bad pass. So, but I try to, I'm probably more the John part of your duo where I have all sorts of different notes and my OCD kicks in and I, I'm pretty serious about my research, but, I think it's a good blend of what Shane and I bring to it.
So wrapping up here, I got one last question for you. So of course we all really miss sports as a whole. So I was wondering if you as the TV guy would have any idea of when or if the hockey season will finish, and if so, like what that might look like if there'll be fans or whatnot.
Yeah, that is the question right now. As I was kind of mentioning earlier, I think it changes day to day. I mean, even if you just look at the last few weeks, it's gone from, all right, they're going to play neutral site games maybe in North Dakota and New Hampshire and Saskatoon. And then that wasn't going to work because the arenas don't really have the support staff to be able to do what NHL teams need.
Mm-hmm.
The latest is hub cities. Vegas could be one of them, to be honest with you, because we've been very lucky in Nevada and in Vegas that our COVID numbers are comparably very low compared to some other areas of the country. So we've been very fortunate there. So I don't know, John. I think that, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to come back and continue the regular season. I just don't know if time's going to allow for that.
Yeah.
The most recent one is expand the playoffs, 12 teams in the East, 12 teams in the West, and then you have like a play-in best of 3, I guess, from, the teams that are in the 9 through 12 area. Where they do it, not sure. I haven't seen a scenario yet where fans are going to be able to attend. And I
Mhm.
think that's where I kind of try to stay optimistic about it, but also realistic about it. Can
Yeah.
they make it safe enough, fast enough for everybody involved? I hope so. And I hope, but it might not be until July or late June until they're able to get back to some semblance of being able to do this. So, but hopefully, they do have some time on their side. I think that is a thing they've been able to kind of take advantage of, and they're willing to push back next season until potentially December, if that means making sure they crown a Stanley Cup winner in 2020. So hopefully they're able to figure it out. As long as they can figure it out, and look, I don't know a lot about the science, but I listen to the scientists, and it all revolves around testing, all of it.
Yeah.
And can they figure that piece out on a huge scale, and make sure that they have enough tests and they can make it safe for everyone involved?
Yeah, for sure. So, Dave, I'd really like to thank you for agreeing to hop on. This has been really awesome for both me and Miguel. So yeah, thank you for joining us today on today's episode.
No, it's a pleasure, guys. And like I said, stay with it. It's a great business. It's a great gig. It beats the heck out of a real job. I can tell you that. So thanks for having me on, and good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
very
very
much.
much.